I have been unfaithful to my wife and I am very afraid of losing her, if she knows the truth. Many times, due to the enormous weakness that men have before the sight of a woman's naked body, they make mistakes that they later regret all their lives. In my particular case, as a result of my weakness in the face of enormous sexual temptation produced by a beautiful and attractive woman, she works with me on a business account. Right now I am suffering a great dilemma because of that mistake made by me on a night of passion at the office, between telling the truth about cheating with a coworker, spending my whole life with that feeling of guilt when at some point you have been unfaithful to your wife and she doesn't know it. Between my coworker and I, unintentionally, as a result of the tension of work, the closeness when a man and a woman are together in an isolated place, and the tension of the moment, sometimes we confuse appreciation and congratulations with a job well done, with that sexual impulses men repress when in front of an attractive woman. At one point we both did something, then we regretted it. Because she is not that easy type of woman and because of this she can break my marriage forever, create enormous pain in my wife and destroy one of the most sacred things between a man and a woman. A woman who swear to be in love known as trust. After that moment of weakness on my part, as a coworker, who must respect the coworkers, as a man, who respects himself and as a husband who must always be faithful to his wife, even in thought, there is no room for there is little doubt that apart from fearing my wife's negative reaction, the loss of trust, marriage conflicts, the accusing look of the woman I love, and do not also talk about the accusations of my relatives for betraying a good wife, who has always been faithful, family friends, all co-workers, who will start looking at me and judging me as a man who is unfaithful to his wife. But, until now it is a secret that is only known between my co-worker and the one who is telling this story of a mistake that I deeply regret and do not know how to correct, because I don't want to destroy my marriage and lose my wife. The day after what happened, between my coworker and I, everything went on as if nothing had happened. Sometimes I wonder if she is as sorry as I am for having sex with a married man, as I am for cheating on my wife. When we passed each other in the hallway of the office, she greeted me with a smile, as if to say everything is fine. But, in my case, I couldn't hide that face of concern for what happened between her and me several nights ago. After much thought, I approached her and asked if she could give me several minutes of her time, in which she told me that she was too busy at the moment. That perhaps in another time we will be able to talk without attracting the attention of the other co-workers. She asked me if I would be willing to meet her at the cafeteria several blocks away when we get off work. From which I accepted her invitation to talk about what happened between her and me that night at work, which ended up making love to a woman who was not my wife. Several hours later, we met at the agreed place to talk about what happened, and how our work interactions would be since what happened between her and me. We both sat at one of the back tables so that no one could see us from outside the small restaurant. Looking into her eyes I asked her, how did she feel about what happened between her and me? To which she replied, that she felt bad for me, because I was a married man who loved her wife and she imagined what I was going through at that moment. But, she assured me, that if I forgot everything that happened and I see it as a mistake that should not have happened, on her part it is a closed case and she expected me to see it the same way. I asked her, if she didn't mind having a relationship with a married man, to which she replied that it wasn't the first time that it happened to her. She also told me, that she didn't like married men, but if she was attracted to a man and he was married, she had no problem having sex with him. As a single, intelligent woman, with an executive position in the company, many times she sleeps with a man just for sex, with no strings attached. She told me that many times after a night of sex for pleasure, she returns to her apartment, and he returns to the house where her wife is waiting for him. She told me that in my particular case you are an attractive, serious, hard-working, dedicated man who loves her family, for which she should feel proud to have a husband like you. Talking about what happened days ago at work, between her and me, our working relationship doesn't change at all, because what happened that night nobody can change. I don't consider myself a danger to your marriage, much less to your wife's happiness. As a woman I can tell you that for my part no one will know what happened, Not because I feel ashamed of having slept with you that night, but because apart from being a married man, you are not the type of man that I really like. As a man, you are too serious for me. She is attracted to men who have a wild side. Looking into her eyes, she told me that she likes men with a modern mentality, who sometimes behave as if nothing matters to them. Somehow she likes bad men, not nice men, which brought some comfort to me. After ending the conversation with the coworker, she said goodbye, saying with a sexy and provocative smile, "I'll see you tomorrow, my secret lover." "It's just a joke," she answered me about what she said in a teasing tone. An hour after having the conversation with my coworker, I felt a certain relief. The infidelity against my wife would remain there. But, from my side, despite all the love I felt for my wife, the feeling of guilt was controlling my thoughts, my behavior, but also how I feel. Many people say that women have a kind of sixth sense when something is not right, a belief that because I controls the way I act in front of her so that she would not notice that something was affecting me emotionally. Anyone who is married and lies the first time, to continue lying is a resource used to maintain a mask that everything is fine in the relationship. No matter how hard I tried to stay calm and current as if nothing was happening, everyone was fine until it was time to be together in bed. Everyone knows that women for some reason always wait for that moment to talk about something that is bothering them. Second before turning off the lights of the lamp, she looked at me with a look of concern, asking what was happening to me. She noticed that I was a little distracted. I was not focused on what I was doing, and above all I noticed that I was very distant, as if she didn't exist. As a way to calm my wife's concerns, I told her that lately the stress of work and a lot of work I have not been able to give the attention that she deserves as a wife. For some reason at the time I didn't have the courage to tell my wife that I was unfaithful to her with a coworker. My wife approached me as a sign of intimacy, and for some reason I did not act on the need she had to satisfy her sexual impulses at that moment of effective need. I don't know why, but I broke the mood when my wife made some sexual gestures towards me, ignoring the feeling when a woman wants to have sex with you. Minutes later I felt angry with myself for not giving in to my wife's need for affection and womanly love. I felt that I was betraying my wife once again, influenced by the feeling of guilt which is the product of infidelity. Feeling of shame and guilt that she is controlling me as a man. Looking at my wife's naked body, I was wondering at that moment, what is going on with me? It could be that I, as a man, feel sexually impotent when I am in front of my wife's naked body, in which the feeling of guilt represses any sexual desire I have for my wife. For some reason, as a result of what happened the night before with my wife, I spent the whole day at work a little restless within myself, as if looking for a solution to the emotional problem I was going through. When I left work, contrary to time ago, I had no desire to get home. I felt afraid of what my wife might or might not know. Also thinking if tonight would be the best time to tell her that I was unfaithful to her with a coworker. I was driving a little out of control, not paying attention to what is happening around me, when many cars come and go in the opposite direction, and let's not talk about pedestrians crossing the crosswalk under the traffic lights. As a way to calm down a bit before I got home, I visited one of my favorite places in my single days, when I wanted to hang out with friends, drinking until I was drunk. After several drinks, without speaking, thoughtful, with a worried face, looking inside myself, wondering why I cheated on my wife with another woman. Suddenly, I heard the soft and affectionate voice of one of the bartenders, who worked behind the counter serving hard drink to the clients sitting at the bar counter. As a way of establishing a cheerful conversation with me and insinuating me to ask for another drink of alcohol, then she said with a word of astonishment, looking in my direction, "Let me guess, do you have problems with your wife?" When you hear those words, look at the bartender and answer her. More than problems with my wife, I am in a bad situation where the only person responsible is me. When the bartender heard my answers, she told me with a smile on her face, "Believe me, you are not the first, nor the only man, who is going through a bad situation." Speaking a mocking tone, with a bottle of whiskey in her hand to fill the glass with alcohol, I stopped her in her attempt, saying that I had serious problems with my wife, that it didn't matter how many glasses of alcohol I drink. I didn't see a solution other than be divorce. She looking into her eyes, she answered, "Don't tell me, your wife cheated on you with another man? She wants a divorce and she wants me to pay the cost of the divorce, child support and pay her a monthly alimony payments?" For some reason, all those speculations from the bartender brought a smile to my face, and looking into her eyes I said, "No, my marriage is still stable and I'm sure my wife loves me." The bartender girl in a mocking tone, looked me in the eyes telling me, "You are a man, who has a woman who loves you, appreciates you and waits for you every night. I would love having a husband, who expected that from me. So you are celebrating right now, that you are drinking a glass of alcohol as if it were water?" Looking into her eyes, I told her, "My problem is not that my wife is cheating on me with another man. My problem is, that I am cheating on her with another woman and I don't know how to tell her." The bartender woman, with a mocking smile, answered me, "You do not seem like one of those men, who sleep with any woman. She must be extremely attractive for you to take that step and more a man like you, who does not have a behavior of being a player. I have always heard that when a man has marital problems he looks for information in 3 places. A trusted friend, a family therapist or a bartender in a place like this where many people come to have a good time, get drunk and others to forget their sorrows." Staring at the bartender, I asked her, "You must have heard many stories of conflicted marriages, failed relationships. Is it wives cheating on their husbands? Believe me, in this job apart from serving customers drinks, one must also learn to listen to customers, when they want to talk about problems they can't talk to at home or at work. Speaking of problem, what is the reason a man like you is living if he wishes to forget something? Days ago I cheated on my wife with a coworker and I don't know how to tell it." She answered me. "For me," she said in a serious tone, "well, you shouldn't tell her. Something that you men never know about women, many suspect that her husband is cheating on her with other women. But, as long as they don't find out, believe me, what I told you as a woman, who has had several marital relationships, everything will be fine. If you never talk about that matter, no woman wants to know that she was cheated on, no matter how much she insists or begs you to tell the truth. Let me tell you something, if your wives cheated on you with other men, you are the last to find out about that infidelity. A woman never tells her husband about an affair unless she is thinking of separating from her husband. Are you thinking of separating from your wife and moving in with your lover? If your answer is no, it makes no sense for you to tell your wives about an infidelity that no one will know about and no one cares about knowing your wife, much less, unless you are thinking of divorcing her. A girlfriend, fiancé or wife does not want to hear such unpleasant news. So many women, even when women know they are being cheated, expect the husband to deny it when they ask that question. So, if you really love your wife, and you want to keep your marriage, never tell her that you were unfaithful to her with another woman. If the feeling of guilt is killing you, it is time for you to mature emotionally and not behave like a child, who is afraid that his parents will find out that he has been misbehaving. In your case, if one day your wife finds out that you were unfaithful to her, that is the moment to decide whether or not to tell her the truth, which as a woman, I recommend that even in that situation you never tell her the truth, because she does not want to hear that truth. What were the reasons why you had an affair with a coworker? She doesn't care, in case you did it, and that's why your wife will never trust you again. It will bring unnecessary conflict in your marriage, and depending on her reaction you will end up alone. Let me tell you something, there are no perfect marriages, there are no perfect men, there is also no such thing as a perfect woman. If you cheated on your wife with a coworker and you really love her, learn to handle that problem without her finding out. Right now, you live in emotional misery because you feel guilty for betraying your wife's trust. If you talk to her about cheating, for you to feel good as a result of remorse, with that act you would be making your wives also suffer for your fault. Maybe that's why I'm telling you as a woman that I am. If you really love your wife, avoid that suffering by telling her about an infidelity for which you are the only one responsible. When you say you want to be honest with her and tell her about your unhappiness, you're not thinking about her emotional well-being, you're thinking about yourself. For days, I was thinking about what the waitress at the bar told me about keeping my mouth shut, if I wanted to keep my marriage. But, for some reason, the feeling of guilt for having betrayed my wife with other women is something that was controlling my thoughts, my emotional stability, and also my work. I couldn't sleep at the thought of knowing that sooner or later my wife would find out about my infidelity with a coworker. After thinking about it a lot and trying to be honest like my wife for cheating on her with another woman, talking to her became a necessity for my peace of mind no matter what my wife's reaction was. As a way of talking to her, I invited her to visit an intimate place where we could talk, without the interruption of a phone call or the arrival of a family friend. Sitting on a beautiful terrace, my wife with an expression of uncertainty asked me what she wanted to talk to me about that we couldn't do in the comfort of the house. She asked me if everything was all right at work. My answer was that everything was fine at work, although lately the stress of work was something that sometimes kept me up at night. She wondered if I had any kind of health problems or did any relatives have serious problems. My answers were looking into the eyes as that none of that was happening. Looking my wife in her eyes, I told her that from the moment I met her, she was the best thing that had ever happened in my life. I always told her that I would be with her through thick and thin and that in my life she was the most important to me. With a face full of curiosity and amazement, she looked into my eyes and told me, "Whatever the problem you are going through, you know that you can count on my unconditional support, because I love you, my sweetheart. Trust me and tell me what's going on with you." Taking both of her hands, with a trembling voice I said, that as her husband I had failed her. That I as a husband did not deserve her love, much less her trust, because I was not a man to trust. She told me with broken words, "You are scaring me when you tells me that. Did you stop loving me?" "Not my sweetheart. I love you more than anyone." She was silent. "So what is the problem?" "Several weeks ago, one day at night, I cheated on you with a coworker." My wives looked at me with a face of stunned astonishment, anger, and disbelief. Her answers was, "How could you do that to me? Did I fail you as a woman? As a woman you do not find attractive? If we were having sexual problems in our relationship, why didn't you let me know before you cheated on me with other women?" For some reason, my feeling of guilt and shame with myself increased when I saw the tears coming out of my wife's eyes. I felt at that moment the most miserable man in the world. At that moment, I failed my wife twice, when I cheated on her with another woman and my lack of courage to keep my mouth shut as the bar waitress advised me. My wife in a tone of disappointment and sadness asked me to take her home, which I did. I thought that telling my wives about my infidelity would make my feelings of guilt go away, but now I feel worse because of the enormous suffering I caused my wives that night. When she got home, she started throwing everything around her, including her clothes, as if trying to overcome the emotional shock caused by what I said. Throughout the night she remained silent, crying and looking into the distance. With that kind of look when someone doesn't know what to do. In a complete state of emotional shock. The next day, without a moment of sleep all night, I felt miserable emotionally, but also physically. I asked her that everything was okay. She replied, yes, that I should go to work so that she would put her mind in order by knowing what had happened, when I cheated on her with another woman. Throughout the day several times, I called to talk to my wife, to know how she felt, but my wife, she never answered a call. When I got home, I was surprised that my wife took all her belongings and she went to her mom's house to think about what she would do with our marriage. That same night I received a call from my wife's mother, in which she confirmed that my wife was there and that she did not want to talk to me. The mother asked me, what really happened? Why did her daughter look so emotionally devastated? My answer was, that she should be proud of her daughter, not of the man she chose as her husband. I tried to talk to my wife to find a solution to her problems, and every time I visited her mother's house, her mother told me that she was not emotionally ready to talk to me yet. She, as a woman, feels very hurt that you have cheated on her with another woman, something that her daughter did not deserve from me. Weeks later, after my wife left her apartment and moved into her mother's house, living in my mind, and wondering what she could or could not have done, Was it smart of me to tell my wife the truth about cheating with another woman? Or should I have kept my mouth shut and thought about my marriage, not myself? After all that has been said, after many nights thinking about them, my feeling of guilt still keeps me awake at night, with the problem that perhaps our marriage ended and my wife would no longer be with me, as a result of my weakness as a man, who one night he let himself be carried away by the impulse of desire produced by a sexy coworker, and my lack of courage to keep my mouth shut about a problem caused by me, when I cheat on my wife with another woman. Sitting in a chair thoughtful, having a glass of alcohol, someone rang the doorbell several times. When he opened the door, it was my wife, who wanted to talk to me about everything that had happened and the solutions to our problems. On impulse I tried to hug, but she rejected me, looking with a face of contempt, compassion and sorrow at the same time, telling me in a low voice, "I came to tell you that our marriage is over." That news was devastating for me, but at that moment I understood what my wife was going through and decided to accept her decision. If as a man I did not have the courage to save my marriage, at least I should have the courage to accept my responsibility and accept my wife's wishes to end our marriage. In the next few days she was going to look for a lawyer and start the divorce paperwork, because there is no possibility of reconciliation between her and me, for cheating with another woman was something she could never get over. Without much to say, with her mother waiting outside, she said goodbye to me with a face full of sadness, disappointment and disbelief that something like this could happen to her. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like this type of story about a man cheating on a woman, let me know in your comment, and in the future I will continue telling similar stories. Please subscribe to this channel and share this type of video.